There is yet more evidence tonight of inflation rippling through the U.S. economy. The Labor Department says wholesale prices in May were up 10.8% from a year ago. A separate report last Friday showed retail prices hit a new 40-year high. President Biden argued today that Republicans have blocked his anti-inflation policies. They said his plans would make things worse. On the pandemic, an FDA advisory panel voted to recommend that the CDC approve Moderna's vaccine for children 6 to 17 years old. It would be the second vaccine for that age group. Pfizer's also covers 5-year-olds. The panel meets tomorrow to consider recommending Moderna and Pfizer shots for children who are under 5. Federal investigators say widespread pandemic relief fraud was largely preventable. Auditors and inspectors general have estimated nearly $100 billion was stolen from monies intended for small business loans, stimulus payments, unemployment benefits, and even funeral coverage. Today, investigators told Congress that officials put speed ahead of fraud prevention in the Trump and the Biden administrations.
No one is suggesting in the IG community, the oversight community, you wait weeks or months. I just think there were several steps that could have been taken that easily matched some existing data, basic checks that could have prevented some of the fraud. Because, you know, all the data shows that if you put a roadblock in front of a fraudster in the first instance, they usually won't come back and try another door.
Federal agencies currently have more than 1,100 investigations underway into pandemic relief fraud. The U.S. House of Representatives gave final approval today to expanding Supreme Court security. It will cover the justices' families and senior court officers under the legislation that is headed now to President Biden. The issue gained new urgency after a man was charged last week with trying to murder Justice Brett Kavanaugh. In Ukraine, Ukraine's President Zelensky said tonight that his forces are suffering heavy losses in the city of Severodonetsk and the Kharkiv region. Most of Severodonetsk is under Russian control, and hundreds of civilians are holed up at a chemical plant under heavy shelling. Britain's plan to deport migrant asylum seekers to Rwanda was blocked today by the European Court of Human Rights. It had been criticized by human rights groups, by church leaders, and reportedly by Prince Charles. The first flight would have carried half a dozen migrants who were ferried to the airport in police vehicles. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said it is about halting human trafficking.
We have had to stop it. It's been extremely difficult to find a way of doing it that is humane. We've had to work within the scope of common humanity and compassion. That's the right thing to do, but we have to interrupt the business model of the gangs.
Johnson's plan calls for deporting migrants who entered the country illegally. Once in Rwanda, they'll be allowed to apply for asylum there, but not in Britain. Back in this country, the race for a key U.S. Senate seat in Nevada is headlining the day's primaries. In the Republican contest, Adam Laxalt, endorsed by President Trump, former President Trump, faces Sam Brown, a retired Army captain and Purple Heart recipient. The winner will take on Democratic incumbent Senator Catherine Cortez Masto in November, as Republicans try to win control of the Senate. More than 100 million Americans from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes are under heat alerts through the middle of the week. Excessive heat warnings covered much of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and parts of other states today, including Missouri, Alabama, and Georgia. Record high temperatures could be set in a number of cities. Floodwaters across the Yellowstone region in Montana and Wyoming started to recede today. Heavy rain and melting snow had turned rivers into torrents, washing away houses and touching off rock and mudslides. Roads and bridges were destroyed, leaving tourists and others stranded. The flooding also forced Yellowstone National Park to close indefinitely. And on Wall Street, stocks struggled to limit their losses as investors waited for tomorrow's Federal Reserve decision on interest rates. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 152 points to close at 30,364. The Nasdaq fell 14 points. The S&P 500 gained 19. Still to come on the NewsHour, lessons the January 6th committee could take from the bipartisan 9/11 Commission. LGBTQ groups become the latest target of far-right extremists. An artist transforms his work after an accident on the job, and much more.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.